The first thing we heard from inside the walls was not a voice. It was a heartbeat. It was faint at first, almost impossible to notice beneath the howling wind that surrounded Blackthorn Keep. A low vibration traveling through ancient limestone, rising and falling like something enormous sleeping beneath the earth. We had entered the fortress expecting to document old construction methods, forgotten burial chambers, and perhaps a few traces of medieval superstition. Instead, by the third night, we were standing in the center of a stone hall, watching a machine register a rhythm that should not have existed, a rhythm that matched something alive. For centuries, Blackthorn Keep had been abandoned on the edge of a mountain valley where even locals refused to walk after sunset. The official records described it as a medieval fortress built during the late 12th century, a defensive structure that protected a forgotten kingdom from invading armies. But the stories surrounding it were different. Villagers claimed the keep did not simply stand there. They claimed it listened. They claimed the stones remembered. When I first arrived with the research team, I thought those stories were nothing more than generations of fear wrapped around an old building. Every abandoned place collects rumors. Every castle has tales of ghosts, hidden tunnels, and restless spirits. But Blackthorn Keep was different. The moment we crossed the broken stone bridge leading to the entrance, we noticed something strange. The entire fortress was covered in limestone blocks that looked unusually smooth for their age. The weather had damaged the outer walls, but the deeper stones remained almost untouched. No normal erosion, no typical cracks, no signs of centuries passing. The walls looked preserved, almost protected. Our team consisted of 6 people. I was documenting the expedition and recording environmental changes. Dr. Elena Voss was a geologist specializing in ancient mineral formations. Marcus Hale handled archaeological analysis. 2 technicians operated the scanning equipment, and our security officer, Daniel, monitored the structure for safety risks. None of us believed in haunted castles, at least not when we entered. The first strange discovery came beneath the main chamber. While examining the foundation stones, Elena found something unusual in a section of limestone that had collapsed from an interior wall. She called everyone over and pointed her flashlight at the exposed surface. At first, I saw nothing. Then she increased the magnification. Inside the stone were tiny dark threads running through the mineral layers. "That shouldn't be there," she whispered. Marcus leaned closer. "Plant material?" Elena shook her head. "No." The silence that followed was uncomfortable. "What is it?" Daniel asked. Elena stared at the sample. Organic matter. She carefully removed a fragment and placed it inside a containment case. The strange part was not that organic material existed inside the stone. That could happen through natural processes. The terrifying part was the way it appeared. The material wasn't trapped between cracks. It wasn't buried by accident. It was fused throughout the limestone itself, as if the rock had formed around it. That night we reviewed the first scans. The results were impossible to ignore. The limestone contained complex biological traces that had been preserved at a molecular level. Some fragments appeared mineralized, but others showed patterns that resembled cellular structures. The next morning, Elena brought out the portable mass spectrometer. The device analyzed the chemical composition of the sample and searched for biological markers. We watched the results appear line by line. Proteins, organic compounds, fragments of genetic material. Then the machine identified something that made everyone stop talking. Human DNA sequences. Nobody said anything for several seconds. because there was a difference between finding ancient remains inside a fortress and finding human genetic material embedded directly into the walls. A medieval keep could contain bones. A medieval keep should not contain living biological signatures trapped inside its stones. Run it again, Marcus said. Elena did. The results were identical. Daniel stepped away from the table. So what does that mean? No one answered immediately, because none of us wanted to say the obvious possibility. The walls had not been built around human remains. Something had happened before the stone hardened. Something had been placed there intentionally. Over the next 2 days, we mapped the fortress. The deeper we explored, the stranger it became. The entire structure seemed to have been designed around a central chamber hidden beneath the keep. Not a storage room, not a crypt, something else. The architecture suggested purpose. The inner walls were thicker than the outer defenses. The corridors narrowed as they approached the center. Every passage led inward, like the fortress was not protecting itself from the outside world. It was protecting something inside. Marcus found old markings carved beneath layers of dust. They were almost impossible to see because they had been covered with the same limestone mixture used throughout the fortress. They aren't decorations, he said. I photographed the symbols. What are they? Marcus looked disturbed. Containment markings. That word stayed with me. Containment. The medieval builders had not constructed a prison for enemies. They had constructed a prison around something they believed needed to be held. Something they feared. The discovery forced us to re-examine everything. The keep resembled structures historians had described as ritualistic prisons. Ancient societies sometimes built chambers designed to isolate objects, remains, or phenomena they believed possessed unusual properties. But Blackthorn Keep was different. Those structures were designed to contain something physical. This place seemed designed to contain something aware. The most disturbing discovery came when we analyzed the stone itself. Limestone is naturally porous. Tiny spaces exist within it, allowing air, moisture, and sound vibrations to move through the material. Over time, some stones can preserve traces of their environment, but the readings from Blackthorn Keep showed something impossible. The stone wasn't just preserving sound, it was recording trauma. The deeper we scanned, the more strange patterns appeared. Certain areas contained vibration marks, microscopic changes in mineral alignment caused by repeated pressure, repeated movement, repeated sound. Elena explained that the stone had absorbed years, perhaps centuries, of intense vibrations. Screaming, she said quietly. Nobody liked hearing that. The idea that walls could hold memories was unsettling enough. But the idea that these walls had recorded suffering was something else. That night, we installed acoustic resonance sensors throughout the keep. Our goal was simple. We wanted to measure the strange vibrations and determine if there was a natural explanation. Wind pressure, underground movement, structural instability, anything. At midnight, the sensors activated. For the first hour, nothing happened. The keep was silent. The kind of silence that feels unnatural, not peaceful. Empty then. The main monitor flickered. A signal appeared, a low-frequency vibration. The sensors throughout the fortress began detecting the same pattern. A pulse. Slow, steady, like a heartbeat. Everyone gathered around the screen. The frequency increased, then decreased. Again. Daniel looked at me. You hear that? At first, I thought he meant the sound from the equipment. Then I heard it. A faint noise coming from the walls. A deep, wet, dragging sound. Like something breathing. Elena walked toward the nearest stone wall. She placed her hand against it. Immediately, she pulled away. What happened? Marcus asked. She looked pale. It moved. Nobody spoke. Stone doesn't move, Daniel said. Elena didn't answer, because we had all seen the same thing. The wall had vibrated, not cracked, not shifted. It pulsed. The next morning, we reviewed the sensor recordings. The vibration pattern was unlike anything we expected. The frequency matched the contraction pattern of organic tissue. The stone was not simply vibrating. Something inside it was contracting, like a muscle. The data showed synchronous movement throughout the keep. Every wall, every foundation block, every chamber, the entire fortress was responding together. The second night we decided to enter the central chamber beneath the keep. The entrance was hidden behind a section of wall that appeared solid. But when Marcus removed the old stone covering, we found a narrow passage. The air inside was warm. That was impossible. The outside temperature was near freezing. The deeper we walked, the warmer it became. The walls changed too. The limestone became darker, smoother, almost organic in texture. I remember shining my light across the surface and seeing tiny patterns, lines, branches, shapes that looked disturbingly similar to veins. Daniel refused to continue. "This isn't a room," he said. "What is it?" I asked. He stared into the darkness ahead. "A body." Nobody laughed, because nobody knew if he was wrong. At the end of the passage, we reached a circular chamber. In the center was a massive stone structure, not a statue, not an artifact, a formation. The limestone rose from the floor like a giant frozen shell surrounding something beneath it. The sensors went insane. Every monitor filled with activity. The pulse was strongest here. Elena approached the formation. "There's something inside." She scanned it. The results appeared. Organic compounds, DNA sequences, cell-like structures. But then another reading appeared. A movement pattern. The thing inside reacted to the scanner. The machine had detected us. For the first time since entering Blackthorn Keep, everyone wanted to leave, but the chamber changed. The walls began vibrating, the pulse grew louder, and then we heard it. A sound, not a recording, not an echo, a scream. It came from everywhere, from the walls, from the floor, from the stone surrounding us. It wasn't a human voice exactly. It was distorted, stretched through centuries of mineral growth, but beneath the impossible sound was something recognizable: pain. Daniel dropped his equipment and ran toward the exit. The rest of us followed, but when we reached the passage, the walls began shaking. Dust fell from above. The entrance behind us slowly closed, not collapsing, moving. The stones shifted together like they were rearranging themselves, like the keep was trying to keep us inside. Marcus started hitting the wall. "Open!" the stone answered. Vibration passed through it, a deep pulse, almost like a response. Elena stared at the walls. "It's reacting." "To what?" I asked. She looked terrified. "To us." For the next several hours, we were trapped underground. The sensors continued recording, and what they captured changed everything. The screams were not echoes. They were active biological discharges. The stone was producing them. The reading showed the same pattern repeating through the walls. The organic inclusions inside the limestone were contracting, releasing vibrations. The fortress wasn't haunted, it was alive. But the question remained, what was alive? The answer came from Marcus. He discovered an inscription hidden beneath the central formation. The words were damaged, but enough remained to understand. The builders of Blackthorn Keep believed they had found something beneath the mountains centuries earlier. Not a creature, not a spirit, something older, something they described as a living memory. They believed it absorbed consciousness from anything near it. They believed it could preserve suffering forever, so they built a prison around it. They fed it stone, they buried it beneath the keep, and they hoped time would make everyone forget. But the final lines were the ones that destroyed us. Marcus translated them quietly. The stone remembers those it consumes. Nobody moved, because suddenly we understood. The DNA inside the walls wasn't evidence of people buried there. It was evidence of people absorbed. The fortress wasn't built to contain something. It was built because something was growing. At sunrise, we finally escaped. The entrance reopened on its own. The keep became silent, too silent. We left immediately and reported everything. The official investigation that followed lasted 6 months. Most of our findings were dismissed. The DNA results were questioned. The sensor recordings were labeled corrupted. The entire site was sealed, but Elena kept copies of the data. She sent them to me 1 week before disappearing. Her final message contained only one sentence: "The pulse has moved." I didn't understand what she meant, not until I reviewed the last recording. The final scan of Blackthorn Keep showed something impossible. The organic patterns were no longer only inside the fortress. They had spread through the surrounding stone. The mountain itself was changing, growing. The last image from the scanner showed a network beneath the ground, a massive structure of mineral and organic material stretching deep into the earth. And at the center of that network was a pattern, a rhythm, a heartbeat. Months later, I returned to the valley alone. I told myself I needed closure. I needed proof that fear had exaggerated everything. But when I reached the old bridge, I heard something beneath my feet. A vibration. Slow, steady, familiar. The same rhythm from inside the walls. Only this time it was coming from the ground. I looked toward Blackthorn Keep. The windows were empty. The towers were silent. But I knew something was watching. Something that had spent centuries trapped inside stone. Something that had learned the sound of human voices. And as I turned to leave, the earth beneath me gave one final pulse. Almost like a heartbeat. Almost like a greeting. And somewhere deep below the mountain, something screamed. Not because it was trapped. Because it had finally woken up.